Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today are Joel Elston and Sam Page.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Yep, we got the band back together again. Joel and Sam both on the platform at the same time. So yeah, Tuesdays are back to the new normal because now we're recording at a different time. So it's a new normal, but it's a normal and it's a good normal.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what normal means anymore. Maybe I should take that word out. It's good, whatever it is. That's the way I'm going to look at it right now. But a couple things going on here. First of all, we're going to be talking about a book called Mind Hacking Happiness. And anything that involves the word hacking, that's like a go buzzword these days, right? If it's a hack, okay, this is a secret. This is a tip that you're going to get. This is the good stuff. This is how you get, into the back end of the video game so you can cheat on the video game. This is how you're going to get all the answers. And I'm going to just kind of go out on a limb and say, we're not going to get all the answers here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, we're going to ask a lot of the right questions. Now, I don't know for sure that's where we're going to go, but I'm just putting it out there. So, Joel, what's your first reaction when you hear me say that?
Well, we have never had anything really go as planned, maybe once or twice. So I don't know why this one would either. So we'll see what happens. We have started,
good reaction. I like that.
One day we have started about neuroplasticity, and we're talking about aliens at some point. So it's just you never know.
This is very true. Very true. So, all right. Well, Joel, you're the one who knows this book better than any of us here. So why don't you just give us like a little synopsis about, what it's about, what the big takeaways are from your perspective, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. This was recommended by a therapist, and it actually from Kentucky that really spoke highly of it. The guy self-published this book. It's become very successful. More than most self-published books. He really done a good job. He has a few other things going on, and he does speaking, and he trains coaches. So I like the concept of what he says a lot. And like you're saying, Walt, we if you have the word hacking or use the F word in the title, that's a really good thing nowadays. But the tangible of what we're looking for is what he's talking about, and I think there's a lot of validity to what he's talking about. I think, as you and I know, that happiness is sort of that the key of everything, and that we're seeking happiness. And when we are happy, then we're a much better mindset to do the things we need to be doing. Mm-hmm. So happiness, mind hacking happiness. I wish I were going to tell you some magical, thing that we could, take 3 vitamins and stand on your head for 5 minutes and you're happy, but it's not what I'm going to tell you.
See, I knew it. We're going to raise more questions. No way our answers. Yeah, that's right, Sam. You got it.
But I will say that, we all have a map in our mind of who we are. Like Sam, you're Sam. And the reason you're Sam is somebody called you Sam when you were born. Walt, you're Walt. Same thing. And through the early years, you were programmed by your family as to what matters. In my home, I just didn't understand it, but you went to the church every Sunday, and you went to Sunday school, and you went to church, and you went to your grandparents' dinner. And so I was programmed from a young age, as we all are, with what my family believed mattered. Mm-hmm. And so I adapt that. So I put that on my map. My mom and my dad and my sister, my grandparents, all that is on my mind map is what I'm calling this. So everything that you believe in, you love pets. I know you love cats. You have a cat. Mm-hmm. So that's on your map of what matters. Everything politically you believe or don't believe, again, part of your map. Mm-hmm. So these things have been developed for years, and some of them matter. Some of them are the center of your map. We were talking about a couple things right before the show that are at the center of your map. Mm-hmm. And there's some things like they're on the edge of the map, like, your baseball team. It's out there, but I know right. People that their baseball team is right in the center of their map. So
sure.
So everybody had, a significant other. You have all these other things that can be on your map. It's really unlimited. What you do for a living, that's on your map. Yep. And that means a lot. Your work ethic's on your map. So imagine all these years of programming that map. Mm. Well, that map is really not you. It's what you programmed. It's sort of that's what the mind is. The map we're talking about is a mind map, and your mind maps all these things into place. So the food you like, all that stuff gets built in. And so you believe it without question. One day, one of the funny things that happened, one of my dearest friends is a little kid that I've just watched grow up, and he was probably about 8 at the time. And my son Justin said, "Hey, can we go up to Starbucks and get some caramel, whatever he gets?" And the kid goes, "Oh no, Starbucks doesn't get our money." And I was like, "Ooh. You're 8. I mean,"
I love that.
Well, he obviously had heard his parents who politically at whatever Starbucks was at the time, where they were going to, "Oh no, they're not getting our money." So this 8-year-old really believed that Starbucks was a no. It was just absolutely not. They're not getting our money. And I actually had to call his mom and go, "Okay, why aren't they getting your?" I just had to know.
The life coach had to find out.
I had to find out. And this kid is like one of my really good friends now. He's like 11 or 12. I've known him his whole life, but he's brilliant. But the stuff that comes out of his mouth, it's been programmed for a long time. So we say things, we believe things. You sort of believe it. You don't question it because it's been repeated so many times. So this map is there. And most problems we have is when there's a perceived violation of that map. If somebody tries to, your feelings get hurt when somebody attacks your map, or you feel somebody's trying to attack somebody or something on your map, you get aggressive or defensive, or you all these things. If something gets removed from your map against your will, you're depressed, you're angry, or whatever emotion goes along with that. So this map is really in control of a lot of our emotion and feelings. Now, that is not you. That is just simply a map you've created. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. Sam, is it working for you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you create it and it becomes so much a part of you, and you kind of are creating it without you realizing it necessarily.
Right. If I were to say, "Sam, we've played a really bad trick on you. Your parents are involved, and your real name's John." Well, you're like, no, my name's Sam. I have it on my birth certificate.
That would be rather shocking.
It would be. Or some of these things that I know of. Another neighbor, their daughter is adopted, and she's 14 and she doesn't know she's adopted.
Oh my.
So I recommended many years ago they let her know that. Now it's getting really awkward. The reaction when she was 6 would have been a lot less devastating than a 14-year-old about to go through this. So her mind map is built solely on all this stuff. Who her family is now. Her parents are still her parents, and they love her, but it's going to be really hard for her to deal with this. Right in the middle of 14. So you have all that going on. Her map is going to be greatly violated. So if you really think about any situational depression, I'm not suggesting any chemical imbalance depression, but a situational depression, which in my opinion is almost 90% of depressions that exist, is the map has been attacked in some form or fashion. And you remove one of my maps, as you know, is I'm a dad. I take that really serious. I'm a dad.
Right.
And so the most brutal violation I can have of my map is my son being taken from me.
Sure.
When he was in a car accident, as you know. So that was a massive violence. That was traumatic. That rocked me to my core. If my car gets stolen, it's on my map, but I'll get another car.
Yeah.
There's just levels of that. So knowing all that, sort of one of the things I have clients do sometimes when we're trying to get through it, I ask people to write out their map, everything, and it can be very comprehensive. What food do you like? Where do you like to eat? All those things are on your map. And then we start talking about, well, your favorite, this is really sort of funny. One day this lady had put pretty high on her map, Jif peanut butter. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm interested. I said, but what if you couldn't get Jif peanut butter? Would you accept other peanut butter? Oh no.
So it was definitely on the map, no doubt about that.
And I was, of course, now I want to know why Jif peanut butter was, and then she didn't know. But as we talked about it, she had a great childhood, and her everyday meal was peanut butter and jelly, and Jif peanut butter was that. So you could see where that was on her mind map, and she definitely related to not just peanut butter. It had to be Jif peanut butter. Skippy, oh no, we don't do Skippy in my house. It's
right.
Jif. And so that idea, when you start looking at what's on your map, and then it helps down the road when you have all this in place. And then when your map gets violated, to be able to step back and go, I'm not depressed. I'm not angry. That mind map has been violated. So that my mind is angry. There's a concept of saying I am angry. It's the me is angry, calling the mind the me. So he uses that term in the book, where it sounds very awkward, but there's a lot of science behind identifying an emotion speeds up the processing of the emotion. If you're just in an ungodly tethered state of everything's falling apart and you're sobbing, and you can't identify that your mind's in that emotional state, then you are that emotion. But if you can start saying the me, or my mind is the one that's emotional, actually I'm not. My mind has created what's been violated. It could have been anybody else or any other thing. It doesn't mean the emotions aren't valid, but it helps you process them to realize that it's really something separate from you that you're going through. I am angry versus the me is angry. There's a lot of reasons why that helps. You could see it differently. If I'm seeing Walt, you're my friend, and when you're upset, we've had some talks when we're dealing with difficult stuff and you were upset.
Yep.
And while I certainly wanted to help, I wasn't upset.
No,
you were.
Exactly.
I was concerned for you, but I wasn't feeling that same emotion. And it was something that my map wasn't violated.
Right.
Yours was.
Right.
So are you with me so far?
Totally. 100%.
Okay. So the ability to separate those emotions is a way of processing. He has several tools, but this is sort of the one he emphasizes the most.
Okay.
But being able to identify what the me is feeling and why that is, it doesn't make it go away, but it speeds up the process a lot, because you've now identified it. And like, why am I angry? Here's a really good example. As I mentioned, my son Justin has been driving now for about a month and a half. He's doing really well. But we have, I'm very accountable of, in the beginning, you're not allowed to drive at night. You can't get on interstate. You have these reasons. So, one night I have a thing called, I think it's Life 360. And it's this, I literally know where he's at and how fast he's going all the time. It's just,
I see.
Okay. It's really a good app. Thank God they didn't have that when I was a kid, but it's great for my kids. I can't imagine my mom saying, "You're doing 107 on that." that would not have been a good thing. So, but Justin is following it. However, one night he was way away from where he was supposed to be. And he wouldn't answer my text. He was actually out of the car. He left his phone in the car. So I was getting really angry. I thought he was angry. And I'm going, of course I'm going, he's a great kid. He's never given seriously, no problem. So I logically knew there's going to be an explanation. He's just a 17-year-old kid that's, and I'm looking, I can't see, I see where he's at on the map, but I don't know where that is. And he's not answering. So I'm creating scenarios. Do I need to get in my car and go there and see if he's okay?
Yeah, sure.
Well, the truth is, when I'm looking at it on my map, Justin's obviously the dead center of my map right now. He's, probably the biggest focus in my life right now, still as he reaches adulthood. So I also have evidence of something that happened in 2014 with the loss of my son that was totally out of my control when he was in a car accident.
Right.
So all of a sudden my mind is going back there and creating scenarios based on the historical stuff, and it's attacking my map. So I'm using old information to attack my map, and I filled in the blanks if something's happened to Justin.
That's something that often gets described as a trigger. The experience you're currently experiencing with Justin is triggering your old memory about what happened with TJ.
Right. So he he finally he answered me, and I was like, where have you been? You know, I was like, ugh. And he said, well, I had to drop off the book that so-and-so borrowed. And I said, remember, I told you I was going to do that. And I do remember he told me he was going to do that. I thought he was going to give it to him at school. I didn't realize he was going to drive it to his house. Turns out it was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong. But I violated my own map with being triggered from old stuff from the past. And we do that all the time.
Right.
The mind fills in the blanks. We awfulize. We take everything to the worst possible conclusion based on historical information. Justin is not answering my call. He hasn't moved. He's been in the spot for 5 minutes. I don't know where this is. Clearly he's been in an accident. He's probably unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah. Understandable. I mean,
Yeah.
you could see how your mind would go there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, having an event like that happen before, I'm hypersensitive to that concept.
Sure.
And so I'm working hard on, while he's still on my map, I also have to realize that my map is going to be influenced, my response to my map is going to be influenced on bad stuff. When, bad relationships, or I see this a lot. People that have had multiple bad relationships and they're in a relationship and something happens, they're like using old information. Well, this is what happened last time, so I'm angry now.
Right.
And they're anticipating that this is going to keep happening. And now we've thrown the law of attraction to this concept.
Oh,
And
that's
now you're
even more fun. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the process of identifying and being able to separate, Sam, or separate Walt, or separate Joel from the mind map, and then step back and go, that's been created. Like your political beliefs, I share very similar political beliefs, Walt. I don't know Sam's, but regardless, they're just political beliefs. I had a really interesting Facebook exchange this week. I was fascinated by it. So I posted one of my normal motivational type things, like I forget what it was, something like, you're in charge of your mood, or something like that. The sky is not falling. Everything's fine. I posted that. And some guy said, you might as well move to a communist country.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm
That's
like,
a
what do you
reaction.
mean? Yeah. And I said, well, I don't understand. Of course, I'm fascinated by his reaction. And he didn't use inappropriate language, but he was clearly angry.
Yeah.
I've never heard somebody get so angry over a motivational post. So,
Right.
so we get further, we're going back and forth a little bit. And, he's like, there's a lot of people suffering and right now. And I go, my world is fantastic. I have a great life. Life couldn't be better for me. I'm sorry that people are suffering, but that's really out of my control. He goes, you're a selfish man. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, you're entitled to your opinion, and I'm sorry you feel that way, but we're good. And I didn't delete any of that. I let him stay. He's still on my comment sheet. He didn't delete me as a friend. So it never got out of hand.
Yeah.
I had a couple friends that wanted to get in there and try to defend me. I'm like, I don't need defending. I'm good. But it's this idea that whatever I touched on his map, I can pretty much predict what his political beliefs are. So he really believes that this is falling apart, and we are on the edge of everything falling apart. Well, since I've been a child, everything's been on the edge of falling apart from somebody's perspective. So, and it shockingly has never fallen apart. So I'm going with the odds that it's not falling apart.
I hear you on that one.
and my sky is not falling. I have an incredible life. I have great friends. I have a financial abundance. I absolute perfect health. I have everything I possibly could want in life. And that's my reality. And my reality was created because I believe all that's on my map now. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, I can obviously see the advantage to this concept of a mind map. By the way, this is a really interesting take on a term that's been around for quite some time. The idea of a mind map gets used a lot in programming, for instance. Programmers create a mind map in order to map out what they want to do with their program. And it gets used in other areas as well. It gets used in design, marketing, a whole variety of different ways. But in this case, we're using it as a way of actually mapping out the human mind in all of its forms. Around that one person based on their experiences in their lives. That's really cool. So it occurs to me, not only is this a way of identifying why it is that we respond the way we do when we feel depressed or we're feeling angry or some sort of negative emotion, but it also helps us to understand a whole lot more about all areas of our lives, not just where we're feeling something negative, where we're feeling something positive, where we're feeling a whole range of things all going on at once, or maybe there are multiple different situations. This one we feel good about, that one we feel bad. I mean, you can actually almost see the whole thing because you got that map in front of you.
Yes.
That strikes me as being really powerful.
It is, and I love your take on that, because while everything tends to filter to the negative at how we develop things, but everything that has a negative side has a positive side. So, one of the concepts that I find fascinating in conjunction with my teachings of the law of attraction is by placing the right things and the right concepts on your map, that's a way of attracting them. So it's a way of getting even a deeper subconscious attraction. The idea that financial abundance is on my map. It's just something that I'm grateful to have. I'm not worried about losing it, because that would have a reverse effect. But the fact that it's there, that's important to me. Having really good credit's important to me. Having a great work ethic's important to me. And I placed all these things on my map, but I also place them on my map with not the fear of losing. Just know they're on my map, and I'm grateful that they're there. So you can use this in many different ways. And as what I do with any of the techniques I'm ever trying to develop, I have a tie into the law of attraction, as you know. I mean, I use everything to get to the law of attraction. And this is one of those things that can help people who have a difficult time sort of grasping it, to understand that there are people that I really want to have a lot of money. Everything else is going great, but I really want to have a lot of money. It's this. It's that's what often gets people tripped up using the law of attraction. Sure. So this map allows you to say, are you afraid of losing it? Because that's the signal you're putting out. That's what the law of attraction does. So I like to meld all this together, but it's an interesting tool. The idea that it's a pathway to happiness can change everything. I said, everybody will have to decide that for themselves.
Sure.
But I do think it's it's a tool that's not often used the way we're talking about.
I think it's actually fair to say you could use this as a way to get to happiness, depending on how you personally define happiness. I think that's probably going to be a big piece of it right there. But I'm like imagining, just going through my day, right? So like right now, people know I run a gardening service. So we're in the middle of the peak of the gardening season here in the Northeast. And as I'm going through my day, I can think of situations where, all right, I'll describe one that happened today. We had a situation where we needed to get certain supplies to the team, and they were expecting them at a certain hour, and I didn't even know that they needed to have them, and we were at that hour already, So the first thought that goes through my mind, or that went through my mind this morning, was, well, okay, I got to get there fast. How do I get there fast? I got to run, got to hurry. And ultimately that's what I ended up doing. And I got it there and it was fine. But now if I apply the mind map idea that we just described and that we just discussed, that you laid out in beautiful detail, well, now I can ask myself, all right, well, what is it that I'm worried about at this point based on my own experiences? Well, based on my own experiences, I have certainly a history of feeling like if it could potentially be an issue, I got to jump on it right now, because otherwise it's going to become a really big issue, which of course is what it does anyway, because I've made it a big issue. I can see that. And that gives me, I can imagine how this morning that could perhaps have given me a little perspective to say, it's okay. It's all going to work out. There's no big emergency here. No one's dying. There's no one going to the hospital. There's nothing major going on other than, the supplies are going to get there 20 minutes later.
Well, and that's what this allows you to do. And now, to be fair, the book has many other concepts, but this is the main takeaway. Mm-hmm. And he also gets into sort of the quantum theory, how it affects the law of attraction and instant. Wow. So it's a really in-depth book. It's 2 parts. We're basically talking about part 1 is where the stuff that this is in. Part 2 gets more into applications of stuff, but it is. I recommend. I read 100 books a year, so
yeah, right.
So this is one that stands out. And anytime that I can extrapolate something from what I learned in the books to use with my clients, particularly like this, I think it's a good topic. And it reinforces what matters is what we tend to, where our energy goes, but it's the way we defend it. One of my clients that this was really effective with, he is he is a passionate, I believe he's a Red Sox fan. I mean, all Boston team, passionate. I cannot use the term strongly enough. It's like just angry when they do. Angry. And one of the things he came to me about is I sort of lose control. When the Red Sox, I feel like they're doing it on purpose. And, so clearly on his map was, really in the middle, way more than it probably should have been, were the Red Sox. And right behind that, he has a very strong opinion politically that is, just again, very strong. So anytime that he hears the other side, he gets triggered by the other people saying the things that he's adamantly for. He's, very idealistic, and he just feels like I'm being attacked. And I was explaining to him, because the people on Fox News, he can get to a screaming fit at the TV. And I was pointing out to him, I said, well, first of all, a lot of these people they're playing a role to make money on TV. I mean, so whether they believe it or not, that's part of what the deal is. But nonetheless, the simple solution is to turn off TV. But it's almost like he watches it and then intentionally gets rageful about it.
Sure.
And it's, so you see there, how you can live that way. So this is a great technique of helping, remove things, because the truth is, and again, this is, not always correct with a lot of people, but as I always say, I have, since I turned my life around, stopped gambling, been in recovery, I think, I'm trying to think who was, I think Bill Clinton was president when that was happening. And since then, regardless of who the president was, I have had incredible gains in my personal and financial and social life and health since then, regardless of who president was.
I'm surprised they didn't all campaign on, well, I just made Joel Elson's life better.
Yeah. They could have, because I would, apparently you did. But so if I put my energy toward that, any of those people like, well, I'm affected by that. I wasn't. None of them, in fact, I won't argue that maybe they each, created something that maybe created an opportunity. Like, when Walt and I were talking, I think it was Walt, I don't know if you and I were talking, I was talking to all my clients right before COVID. And, I'm like, COVID's I don't know how, but I'm going to be better on the other side of COVID before we go into, I don't know how yet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, I literally, because of the way there's a lack of therapists, I was somebody who was seeing people in person. I never stopped seeing people in person. So you have somebody seeing people in person who is just, I could have charged $500 an hour and just had been full 50 hours a week if I wanted to. It was, and I didn't do that. Of course, I didn't raise my rates, and I try to keep my balance of accounts, but it just makes sense when you realize the stuff that you worry about. My basic law of attraction is what we're attracting. So doing the reverse of that is being able to identify in your map, and am I protecting it? Am I able to let it go? Because being fearful of losing something in your map, and some of the stuff on your map, like me losing my son TJ, was totally out of my control. It didn't exist. So I have no control over his loss. So it certainly was painful. It was certainly because he occupied such a big space on my map. But and I didn't have this technique to use at the time. But one of the things I do remember, I do have a belief that energy doesn't die, and I feel I've been connected with his energy since then. But it's still a very rough thing. But as I'm able to see it, my mind is what created all that by what I gave value to, and that helps on some level.
Yeah, I can see that. Sam, what are your takeaways right now based on what you've heard so far from what Joel was telling us?
Well, something I'm curious about, because I think like your map is like a lot of like what you put importance towards and such. And so does your map kind of shift as your mindset shifts and such?
Yes.
Makes sense.
Completely. And one of the things that's a great point, because I think one of the ways to happiness, and maybe this is sort of the point of what he's trying to say. If he ever hears this, you're going, well, duh. But maybe maybe the point of happiness is identifying the things on the map that are creating problems, and the stuff that can be removed, remove them. As your mindset gets better, as you're saying, things that matter, the gentleman that I was talking about that was into sports, and I didn't want him to stop rooting for the Red Sox. We took it away from almost the center of the map. Let's put it out on the corner of the map. Enjoy the Red Sox, but let's don't create almost getting divorced over the Red Sox guy throwing a bad pitch.
Right.
Or your son who wants to play with you and he's scared because you're screaming about a baseball game. Let's put it way over there on the side, and still wanting to be a fan, but at the same time, as if the Red Sox win every game for the rest of eternity, your life's not going to change. Or if the Red Sox lose every game for the rest of eternity, it's not going to change. Neither outcome is going to change your life at all. It's just your interpretation of that. You still got to go to work. You still get to take care of your family. You get to watch your son grow up. You get to do all these things. You have all this great stuff going on. Watch the game, but don't take any happiness away. So the mind map gives us a place we can move it further away or just take it off the map entirely. Why does it matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, one of my principles is just kind of try to not take anything personally, but then especially if it's something that isn't directly correlated to me, like my favorite sports team or whatever, then it's like, that's kind of not the best use of one's energy.
Of course. Well, and I love the idea. I love that concept. I'm really good. For the most part, I'm trying to think as I talk, but I don't really take anything personally anymore at all. There's nothing that I take personally. I have a tendency, again, with my kids to maybe, I can take something personally about them, if I need to defend them. But as far as me, like the guy on social media that called me a selfish man, that did not, I found that humorous and funny that a motivational post had this guy screaming. Yeah. But nonetheless, I didn't lose any sleep over that, or obviously it didn't affect me. I don't take that personally. He doesn't know me. But he clearly, is really angry at me because I think that he's in control of his perspective. But this is something that's really helpful because, like you're saying, Sam, sports teams, in my mind, in my opinion, I'm not judging anyone else, that would be a ridiculous thing to have on the map. It's something like I like some sports teams, but I am not in any way affected. I like to watch the Golden State Warriors play basketball, not because I'm a big basketball fan, but if you ever watch a game, they're just phenomenal. They just shoot crazy shots. And
oh yeah.
And I saw the other night they lost to the Lakers. It's like, oh, okay, they lost to the Lakers. So next year I'll watch them again. Nothing affected that.
To me, that seems like a healthier take on that.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Something else occurred to me too, as we were talking about how this whole idea of this mind map really applies all across every area of our lives. Something I've been reading about lately. I've seen it labeled a lot of different ways. I've seen it labeled as like having a sociometer. I've seen it as social status or social rankings. But the basic idea that when we interact with other people in whatever arena, it doesn't matter what the arena is, we have a tendency to rank them as either being ahead of us or behind us on some measure, whatever, so if you're in, like the jobs arena, somebody is your supervisor, we rank that person higher, than ourselves because they're a supervisor. Or if it's you're a business owner in the business world and there's somebody else who's, not quite as successful as you are, well, you're ranked higher than they are. And that this is something that even the most egalitarian of us, we all do. We are all rankers at all times, which can be quite disconcerting, by the way, if you do believe yourself to be an egalitarian. But nevertheless, because that happens, it's a big part of our psychology. So I'm wondering, to what degree does that tendency, that it's not even a tendency, it's almost a drive, that drive that we have to rank ourselves compared to others, I wonder to what degree that plays on the mind map.
That's a really good point. Probably does a lot. I mean, it'd have to, because there's, again, there's I don't know the exact joke, but I am the best driver. Either everybody's driving too slow or way too fast, but I'm driving the right way. Okay. So we all sort of feel that way. It's like, oh my God, that guy's driving like a bat out of hell. Well, she's going way too slow. Well, clearly I'm the only one perfect in this. And it's
yes, apparently, yes.
Yeah. So, and everybody sort of feels that way. It's just an amazing, and there is, and my ranking thing is maybe skewed a little bit because since I'm so fascinated with people, I just want to know what people know. I want to know what drives people.
Mm.
So I come in a little differently because I just, there's a guy at Home Depot that's always speaking to everybody. I don't know anything about a story, but I want to know why he's so happy. I like that. I
Mm.
want to know. I want to go talk to the guy there. I want to, I want to figure out what's going on. How did he get to where he got? What happened? There had to be an event that happened. I need to know all that. I'm not ranking him. I'm just thinking, wow.
Well, in a sense, you are ranking him. You're saying, wow, that guy does it so much better than everybody else. How does he do that?
Well, yes, yeah. And then there's other people. I work with, as I've mentioned before, an exceptionally wealthy crowd, just way beyond money that I've ever could imagine personally. And it's this, I'm baffled that none of them are happy.
Mm.
Because you assume if you had unlimited options, one of my clients mentioned he could spend $3 million a day for the rest of his life and never touch the principal.
Yeah. Wow.
That
makes
fascinating. and he has a lot of problems.
Mm.
And it's just, again, so you wonder, so there's an assumption, again, this may be a ranking. Well, if you had all that money, why would, it's like, how can he be that screwed up, and or the lady that's standing on the street, begging for money. It's like, oh, well, what's she doing? Or, she should be working, or what. You could come up with a lot of rankings of why she's there.
Oh, yeah.
Or what,
Yeah.
and it's, I still want to get out and talk to her, and I like how we got here. I want to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that, I just have a fascination with people and how they think. It's always been sort of my thing. But you're right. Even within that, there's a ranking because I want to know what's going on due to whatever they're doing.
And not only is there a ranking, but I imagine that part of what goes on to that mind map is what we infer is going on with the other person. I mean, you made reference to the person who's begging on the street. We often infer that person is struggling to survive, and they've got nothing, and they're living moment to moment, and they could just kick the bucket at any time. And yet, numerous people have done, I don't know if you could call it a study, but they've taken the time to go talk to people like that and learn that not necessarily. Actually, some of those people are pretty happy with what they're doing. Like, they don't think there's anything wrong.
I've stopped and talked to some that I stopped around Christmas, and I was talking to a gentleman. He just looked, he had the look, and
right.
He's a little older, and I was like, I said, look, I have a program that I'm affiliated with that I can take you to right now. They will give you a bed tonight. They'll give you a bed. They'll get a complete fit. It's a really good program for homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a shelter. It's a comprehensive, whatever we need to do. If you got pending criminal charges or your license, it's just a sort of a wonderful program.
That's pretty cool. It sounds like, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. The people that open up, it's just because the shelter just sort of, it's necessary, but it just sort of perpetuates. And
right.
This is getting out of the shelter. And so I explained it to him, and he was very nice, very well spoken. And he said, I give him my card. So he said, Mr. Elston, he said, I make about $300 a day doing this. And he said, I work about 5 hours. And I said, okay. And he said, so I make it about $60 an hour cash. And I stayed at Extended Stay Motel. I have an alcohol problem, but I'm able to go do this all day. So I actually have the life I prefer. What you're describing sounds like hell to me.
Mm.
And I said, okay. I said, you have my card. If you don't want to talk, I will make sure you get in. And he said, thank you. It was very pleasant. And he went back to doing what he did, and I went back to doing what I do.
It reminds me of one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes stories. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was definitely ahead of his time writing in the 19th century, but he tells a story of a man who is a beggar in the middle of London who literally is pulling down a gentleman's income as a beggar.
Wow.
I mean, there it is. That's exactly what you just described,
wow.
right?
I didn't know that. Yeah, wow.
It's one of my favorite stories. It's a really cool story. But it really opened my eyes to the idea that we can't really go with what our initial impression is. We have to have a certain eye of skepticism about our own judgment about it.
Well, and that our own background and what we've experienced
Yeah.
sort of lends to that bias. So
Right.
we rank somebody based on all that. And, there's an entire group of people that are, I don't like the term, but somebody that they're basically voluntarily homeless. They're not forced into homelessness. They sort of enjoy the,
Yeah.
go out and make your money for the day, go buy your beer, get drunk, go do it the next day. That's sort of what they want to do.
Right.
And of course, my mind is like, why the hell do you want to do that? But
I'm with you.
yeah, but again, that's me sitting in there's people that look at me going, why would you do what you do? I mean, Lord, that's a lot of stuff. And, it's like, I love what I do. So,
I've actually been one of those people, not so much, like in horror, but more in admiration. Like, how could you actually do that? That was my attitude, especially in the earlier years as we were doing those early shows. I mean, I was just in astonishment that you could do that.
yeah. It's just, but it's what I'm into. So it just, it just makes, that's what makes all this, to me, makes it all, everybody's on their own journey. We talked about that. And like you're saying, the idea of social ranking, or, the what car you drive, and all that matters, and when I park at the gym one day, and this guy I pull up right by me, just pulled up, and I didn't know what he was saying. He got out, and he's a friend of mine. We've been working out for years together. He goes, yeah, I've been thinking about getting a new car. And I go, okay. I didn't know what he was talking about. And, it wasn't hitting me but he's like, yeah, I know it's not a great. I said, man, does it run? It looks like it's fine. And then he's like, I pull up at my car. He's judging my car and looking at his car, and felt almost like apologizing for his car on some level. And I didn't look at it that way at all, but his perspective was, you could tell him, and I'm like, that's the silliest thing. Don't worry about that. That's ridiculous.
And yet it wasn't ridiculous from his perspective, because for whatever reason, one that we don't know about, it was on his map and it was near the center of the map.
Sure. And so it just really mattered to him that I knew that he was going to be getting a new car soon. And, it was like, and I was, again, as I was processing, because that was just a weird way to start a conversation.
Yeah. Well, there's that too.
Yeah. How you doing? I'm going to be getting a new car soon.
Yeah. Right.
That's quite answer the question.
Yeah.
Now, the book we've been talking about, Mind Hacking Happiness, the author is Sean Webb. And as you were mentioning before, this is the first volume that we're referencing here. But since the title is Mind Hacking Happiness, that kind of infers that he's saying, take this model that I'm laying out here and use it to achieve happiness. Does he give us like specifics on how to go about doing that?
Yeah, there's several techniques. There's several things he talks about. He simultaneously in the book, this is funny, he simultaneously says, this is, when he's describing the book, this is not some, excuse my language, bullshit law of attraction book that doesn't work. This is an actual technique. Then later, he literally described the law of attraction as a technique to get what you want. So,
So maybe it's a law of attraction book, but not a bullshit one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it, and I think what he was probably referring to is some of as we have spoken about, some of the people that are in this now, especially like on social media, they're just, they dumb it up. They just, oh yeah, I just wanted this car and it showed up in my driveway the next day. It's almost like that's where they're selling. Buy my program and I'll tell you how to do that.
Right.
But he does talk about, he gets into, a lot of the concepts we talk about, your perception of what happy is. And, if you're constantly focused on the negative, you'll keep attracting the negative. Mm-hmm. So it's just, he gets into all pretty much the stuff we've talked about, but this map sort of was, to me, that was a unique part of looking at this that led to the good stuff. The other stuff is quality stuff, but it's pretty much standard in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
How the body responds to, the healing, also, we've talked about placebo effect. He gets deep in the placebo effect.
Really?
he talks. You would like this book, Walker. He
I'm
actually.
going to read this one. This is sounding really interesting. Both volumes, actually.
Yeah. He gets into the. He was talking about this. The drug companies now are they're testing for people, and I think we just talked about this. Testing for people who are susceptible to the placebo effect and kicking them out of the study.
Right.
So because they don't want to mess them with their drug, and his point was, they're the ones you want in the study.
Exactly.
Yeah, and why aren't we looking at the placebo effect? Why aren't we using that? And I think, yeah, I mean, he's speaking to you, Walt, with that. That's your main question.
Yeah, I love that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, but he talks a lot about again the quantum theory, entanglement theories, and for any action to take place, there has to be an observer. That theory, and the observer affects the action, and it's, right. So he gives a lot of examples, even more in depth than some of the stuff I think you'll love it. The whole process that he goes through is really, I mean, it is a law of attraction book, in the sense it's more of a an energy attraction book.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's what law of attraction really is anyway.
I know, but it's not a bullshit law. Let's be clear.
That's right.
Yeah.
Give credit where credit. That clearly the idea of a bullshit law of attraction book, that's on his mind map. Yeah, that's why.
So, and I have a feeling he's probably talking about The Secret. I just think, because
possibly.
I love The Secret. So
I know you do. You give 1,000 copies a year or something like that.
I have no idea anymore, but at one point it was over 2,700. I've been doing that like 3 years ago. So, I give a bunch away, but what I like about the law of attraction, it introduces it incrementally. It whets your interest, and then you go deeper. If you go straight deep dive Abraham Hicks, you're going to be like, what is this chick talking about? You know? So so I always think The Secret plays a role. It's certainly not comprehensive, but apparently The Secret pisses him off. So it's like,
I've had a few people on the show who had the same kind of reaction.
Sure.
The thing that I found to be most interesting is when I can nail them down on what's the specific piece that really got to them.
Right.
They do the same kind of thing that we were talking about earlier in the show. The idea of taking something, it's on our mind map, so to speak. It's something that we picked up along the way. We put it there. We value it highly. If anybody came in and messed with it, we'd be really upset because they were messing with that piece of our mind map. And that particular, whoops. Oh, good. I thought we lost you there for a minute, Joel. But that, that piece of the mind map, that's so important to us, or that's so important to whatever the person is that we're talking about. That piece, when it changes, or when it is not only, how do I want to say this? Not only when it's threatened, but also when somebody else comes in and forcibly changes it, like you were talking about, when there's that traumatic side to it. That feeling, that experience, it not only upsets you, it challenges you to your core.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about something here that just it's a way of describing those situations where we really feel like we're out of control. You talked about the Red Sox fan who felt like he was out. I'm sure he really was in that sense.
Yeah, he was.
He was very much out of control because he felt like it's almost like he felt like his existence was threatened.
His identity was threatened. That's that map.
Yeah.
It was threatened. Yes.
Yeah.
Politically, religiously, when the passionate people, and whether I agree with them or not,
sure,
but I whether you're talking about abortion or gun control or any of these things, there's people that are so it's so much their identity.
Yeah.
They mean it sincerely. They really do. And
sure.
It's like, it's the core of what matters to them. It's like, and I don't care. It's like, these aren't my things, it's like, I've always been, I don't want to do that. Never mind. That would go down a deep hole. But, the idea that but what matters to me, like, I always talk about, I'm always advocating for foster care kids. I'm always, they're underrepresented. They're all, and so I'm fighting. And there's people that are out there going, what? Why do you care? It's like, and I'm not judging them. They don't get it, but it's just,
Sure.
we all have our stuff,
Yeah.
when your significant other leaves and you didn't know they were leaving, and
Mm.
you're not only, they're just ripped from your map and you have no control over it. And you're just devastated. We are just devastated when that happens, because just
Oh, yeah.
this idea, all this happened to me. See, you literally violated everything that meant everything to me. And what, do I have anything left? Do I have to look at the area? One of my thoughts early, when TJ passed away is, I was like, is there, what's the point now? I had to program a lot of stuff. And, one of the things that came to, I said, well, he died at 23. So I guess just live for two of us now. It's going to be both. I'm going to have to double up. I'm going to have to work harder. And I use it as a motivational type thing for me. But, it was like, I had to replace something on my mind map about him. So in my mind, I had to go experience what he didn't get to experience. I had to go make success. And from that point in time, I'm not saying that was the sole catalyst, but the last, 5-6 years of my life have been just phenomenally. It's just way greater than anything I thought I could achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were saying that, something else occurred to me. Maybe this is the last thing we talk about to wrap this whole conversation up. And that is people are dealing with all kinds of stuff all the time. I mean, that's part of what it is to be alive. There are certain things that happen in people's lives, usually very traumatic, where we're faced with a choice. And the choice is to believe that we have a choice or that we don't have a choice about how we're going to deal with it. And I think you know what I mean there. I encountered somebody recently who had been through I won't go into all the details about what she's dealt with. That's her stuff. But it was really traumatic stuff. And it's happened multiple times throughout her life in a variety of different ways, people very close to her and her family and so forth. And she had come to the conclusion that this one particular kind of pattern, it was a pretty severe pattern. Not only could she not ever change it, but anybody who had not been through it couldn't understand it. And there was nothing that she could ever do to feel better about it.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it's pretty, that's a pretty, I don't know what adjective I want to put to it, but it's not pretty. Let's put it that way.
It doesn't have a good outcome.
No, it doesn't have a good outcome. And, obviously somebody who's in that mind space is not somebody who's really trying to improve. They've already kind of ruled out the improvement thing, but it does help a little bit, I think, to understand this idea of the mind map in terms of helping to understand where they're coming from. Like, I don't really understand her viewpoint. I mean, I kind of do, but I really don't. But at least with the mind map, it almost gives me a way to let go of it more and to, feel better about it and say, you know what, that's where she needs to go. I don't know why. I don't know what's in it for her, but I can just let her go the direction she needs to go because I don't need to know why. The mind map helps me to understand that.
It helps understand it. And whatever it is was programmed at a really young age.
Probably,
and
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and she probably will never, unless there's a lot of introspective work done, never see it. One of the things that, my mom, and she's passed away, so I don't like to, be negative. But she was a very anxious woman. I mean, really severely anxious. And she had a really severe bias against people being overweight. And I saw how it wasn't so much me, but that drastically affected my sister's life,
Really?
in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Wow.
Just like we would be having dinner. My sister, growing up was never overweight. She's a very, very beautiful young lady. But like we would be having cake and I would get this literal massive, huge cake with 5 scoops of ice cream.
Oh my goodness.
And then my sister would get a little sliver.
Wow.
In one scoop.
Wow.
And
oh my goodness.
With no words being spoken.
Yeah.
My sister, right. I look over there and sometimes my sister would just have tears coming down her eyes. She's just like,
man.
Because there was, and my mom was nice to everybody, but the moment that I'm around, well, she's certainly gotten heavy. She could, that was her thing, and she just judged fat
Wow.
people, and that was what she called it. Just it was all secretive. It was something she never said out loud to anybody else. She was a Sunday
Yeah.
school teacher. Had this great image, but she just and it literally. I mean, it did this. Over the years, that scene of there were one year probably. I don't know. Now time flies, but my sister was grown. I'm grown. I was visiting on my I think it was my dad's birthday, and the same thing happened. And
Mm.
now I'm a grown man. Now I'm there. And now I'm doing what I do now. So I took my massive piece of cake and I put it in front of my sister. I just looked at her. I go, if you ever do that again, I'm never coming back. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I go, yeah, you do. And
Boy, you are the master of challenging people, I tell you. Whoa.
and she knew me well enough that it didn't happen again, at least when I was around,
Mm.
because that was just you're not going to do that to my sister. It's just unfair. And I
Yeah.
saw the look on her face. It's just you create weight problems by doing that. You create eating disorders by doing that to people.
I'm curious,
Yeah.
how did your sister respond to that? That was probably a bit of a shocking scenario for her.
She was so grateful I stood up for her.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and she said, I just can't believe that, she said, I didn't know you noticed. And I go, oh, I noticed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy. So not only have we talked about how we can come to appreciate what somebody else is going through, even if we don't understand it, you've taken it to another level of how we can actually challenge somebody on
I have
something.
no idea how we got to that piece, but at least we didn't get to the aliens today.
Well, we have 4 minutes left.
Yeah, but it's the fascinating piece that this is, while I like the concept, and I really do. I think this is a tool, and maybe one day we'll do a more deep dive on the second book too, where we get into more of the processes. But what I do want to point out is this is pretty much what we always talk about, but it's a reframing of it. It's helping identify it,
Right.
and it's just a tool with people when you understand that everything you believe and you feel and you think has been programmed since your childhood. So it's neither right nor wrong. It's just what you were programmed to believe. And no matter how adamant you are about that you're right, somebody born in Birmingham, Alabama, and somebody born in Midtown Manhattan they grew up in entirely different worlds.
Yeah, different maps.
Yeah, totally different map. So, before social media, I mean, everybody sort of stayed in their areas and we all sort of figured it out. Social media makes everybody just sort of go at each other, and you're exposed to ideas that violate your map. And that's why we have so much fighting and that's why people will do the things they do to keep power. They believe the other side is trying to cheat. The other side's they're evil. And both sides believe that.
Wow, really potent.
Yeah.
Sam, you get the summary here. What's the number one takeaway that you're taking from this really fascinating conversation?
Absolutely. And for whatever reason, the thing that's coming to me is just how law of attraction can play into pretty much anything, but including this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it is interesting how beliefs and then how they form your identity or how you think of yourself.
Mm.
And when you figure out how to adjust, and I don't know, it's like when you have certain truths. Again, I was brought up and believed for probably until I was 10 or 11, the religious beliefs that I was taught. I believed it without any debate, and anybody that thought differently was clearly wrong. It was just, I couldn't believe it. And when I started when I was getting the quote unquote lessons they were talking about, and I'm trying to figure out that doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. And then when I would challenge it, I would just be told, well, Satan is putting that in your head. Like, no, he's not. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Make it make sense and I'll be fine. But I believe this, but I've used my roller coaster story for years. As a child, scared of roller coasters because my mom programmed that in me. And then when I'm 13, all of a sudden I'm the biggest fan of roller coasters. I had to literally change entire belief systems to get on a roller coaster.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, great. But you're absolutely right, Sam. And now that since we know how the law of attraction works, and we implement our lives daily, these are just, to me, like you said, see how it relates to law of attraction. In my world, everything relates. There is nothing going on that's not law of attraction based. Period.
Yeah. No doubt.
I agree.
The idea that I take everything and try to see what is the relationship to the law of attraction, because as I refer to it, it is the law.
Well, on that note, I have noticed the aliens have landed, so I think it's about time to wrap up the show. But this has been fun. Thank you so much for bringing this in, and man, I can't wait to see what we're going to talk about next week. It's going to be good, whatever it is. But in the meantime, thank you all very much. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye.
See you later. Bye, Sam.